Everybody, welcome. I'm Scott LaFlemme, town manager. For folks who may be viewing this later on, welcome. And for the folks that came tonight, welcome to a public forum related to our ongoing statistical revaluation of property here in Yarmouth. We've got a great panel of folks who have been working on this for the past several months, going to give you all an overview of where we're at, a little bit more about the details about the process, and then sort of what's to come in the next few months. So I'm going to start things off by welcoming Rob Sutherland, who's our regional assessor through Cumberland County Regional Assessing. He works on behalf of the town of Yarmouth and 5 other communities in Greater Portland. Rob's going to start us off, give a little bit of an overview, and then hand it off to Steve Whalen and David Cornell, who are assisting with sort of the boots on the ground and some of the analysis that we've got going on. So, great. The floor is yours. All right.
Thank you very much. My name is Rob Sutherland. I'm the assessor for the town of Yarmouth. So today we're going to go over what the statistical reval is, what that process looks like, and maybe what to expect in the near future regarding this project. So, as Scott said, with me are Steve Whalen. He's a project manager from Vision Government Solutions, and I've got David Cornell with me as well. He's a valuation expert and a consultant who's helping us with some quality assurance and general data analysis. So, I'll give a quick overview of what a reval is, what a statistical reval is, what that process generally looks like. I'll then kick it over to Steve, who will go into some more of the particulars of Vision's process. And maybe give us a better idea of what the timeline looks like for certain phases and what to expect in the near future. And then David will wrap it up with a couple of comments on some of his findings from data analysis using tools like Power BI, and then we'll open it up to questions. Great. Okay, so what is a revaluation? So a reval is the process of equalizing property values across a municipality for tax distribution. So in the state of Maine, properties are assessed property tax based on their valuation relative to other properties. The process involves both data collection and market analysis, and the goal is to ensure uniform property values and equitable tax burden. Why conduct a revaluation now in Yarmouth? So state law requires that property assessment is based on what's called just, or what the state means by that is market value, so what a property would sell for on the open market in an arm's length transaction. So when we set a new valuation for your property, the goal is to approximate what that property could sell for between an interested buyer and seller. Revaluations are a way of ensuring fairness, and how they do that is they align property assessments with market value. So that is essentially the state's definition of what a fair property tax assessment is. In Yarmouth, the last time that happened was in 2016. That was a full measure and list revaluation, which is a bit different from what a statistical reval is, which is what is happening during this process in 2025. The goal of the 2016 revaluation was to establish and update building data inventory, and then use sale data and cost data to establish new market values. We are using the existing, with some exceptions, the existing building data, which our office maintains on a regular basis, to establish new values by analyzing them with updated costs and with what properties are selling for in the open market in recent history. So property values can change in ways that are uneven over time, which leads to inequalities. So that could be different classes of properties, commercial properties, residential properties, different styles of homes, condominiums, things like that, different neighborhoods or locations within a particular community. So revaluation will equalize property values by aligning them again to what market value is, and that's essentially a way of promoting fairness in property taxation. So the valuation of, let's say, your particular property is established, again, through, in this case, a statistical reval, which is where properties that have recently sold in an arm's length transaction will be analyzed. They'll be inspected with the permission of the owners to make sure our information is accurate and correct, and then establish new valuation schedules to apply to the rest of the properties across town. Verification involves physically, again, inspecting each qualified sale. The range of sales under consideration are in the last 2 years prior to April 1, 2025. So April 1, 2023 to April 1, 2025. Data gatherers from VGSI, so Vision Government Solutions, will be shortly wrapping up exterior and interior inspection of those sale properties. They've been sending out letters to request such inspections. And this process ensures that accurate information is used for schedule development so that the sale data is a reliable tool to establish new property values. Vision is currently beginning the analysis of those inspections and sale data. And again, they're using sales from April 2023 to April 2025 and considering replacement costs, income and expense statements, and other things. And Steve will go into that in perhaps a little more detail. We're, of course, also working with David Cornell in ensuring our information is accurate and reliable. So, again, what is a fair assessment? So a fair assessment is, at least according to the state in the context of this reval, it is fair market value of your property as of April 1, 2025. It is assessed equitably to like properties that are similarly situated, so essentially comparable property, and it also accounts for differences between such properties. Perhaps the $60,000 question, will my taxes go up? The answer to that is not necessarily. Property values are expected to increase pretty much across the board since it's been nearly a decade since the assessment system has been updated as far as the cost schedules and the land schedules that were developed from property sale analysis were established. A higher townwide valuation, however, usually results in a lower tax rate, assuming consistent municipal appropriations. So increasing property values increases the tax base that the budget is essentially taxed against. So a good thing to keep in mind is that revaluations are revenue neutral. The purpose of a reval is not to collect more tax money. It's to make the system fairer. So no matter what, the only taxes that are raised are the ones that are budgeted and approved in the town of Yarmouth. And as a result, your taxes may increase, stay stable, or decrease. Property owners will be notified of new assessments through letters, and Steve, again, can go into this process perhaps a bit more as far as what that looks like and what timing is. But you'll be sent a letter sometime late spring, early summer with valuations that have been completed by Vision Government Solutions and then reviewed by my office. And again, reval is not a way for the town to raise additional taxes. Again, it is revenue neutral. The town only assesses taxes needed to meet the approved annual budget expenditures, and the process essentially redistributes the existing budget among property owners in order to improve equity as defined by the state. So that said, if you disagree with your new assessment, when you receive your letter, property owners will be able to meet with a representative from Vision Government Solutions to discuss that valuation, to present useful information, appraisals, to ask questions, things like that. And of course, the property value may then be revised or not, depending. If there's still, of course, disagreement, there are formal ways to appeal your property tax assessment once the bills go out. So you'll have 185 days after commitment to appeal to my office as the assessor, in which scenario we will take a look at the information you provide and render a decision within 60 days of receipt of that. And a good thing to remember, again, is an unfair assessment occurs if your property's estimated market value is either, and this is statutory, manifestly wrong, illegal. A good example is assessed to the wrong person, let's say, or overvalued compared to similar properties. Your valuation or tax percentage change compared to others does not by itself mean your assessment is unfair. Again, different classes of properties have changed in terms of their valuation over the last decade in ways that are not necessarily completely equitable with each other. We're also, of course, constantly reviewing and trying to make our data more and more correct. As a result, not every single property will increase the same amount, and that's really the goal in the process of making the assessments more fair is to make them conform to what market value is in 2025. And with that, I will push it to Steve to give us some more information about the process from Vision's side. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Steve Whalen. I'm the project manager from Vision Government Solutions. This is just the valuation update. Oh, I'm sorry. The valuation update flow chart, just showing the different levels of how we started. So we had the startup meeting, public relations, that's ongoing, startup meeting. We're collecting data, which would be the sales of valid sales, not the other properties within the town. On the left-hand side, the three approaches to value would be the market, would be the sales, the cost approach, and the income approach is used for the commercial properties only. On the right-hand side, the quality control. So not only do we have data collectors out there collecting the sales information, but we will do a field review at a later date. So that is a drive-by of every property, not just the sales. And we're verifying what's on the property record card with what we're actually seeing. So that's another double check. Income and expense statements were sent out to all the commercial owners in town, and we're trying to get lease information from them. So if it's owner occupied, then that really doesn't apply. But for example, if you owned a warehouse and you rented it to somebody that you weren't related to and you're renting it for $6 a foot, if you turn that in, we can value commercial property based on the income flow. So field review, like I said, will be coming up, and there'll be correlation of values. And then we have informal, like Rob was saying, informal hearings once the values are sent out. Like Rob was saying, corrects disproportionate taxation, adjusts the values of the market shifts. Like Rob was saying, just different style properties change for whatever reason. At one time, colonials were the hot property, and they're kind of out of style now, and it just moves on to another property. So you just never really know. Captures all the new construction, so the building permits that have been going on for the new growth, access to information, which is pretty much everywhere now. Qualified sales inspections, those are valid sales, so no sales that are, the same family, the same last name, intercorporation, things like that. Those are all thrown out. So we're just looking at the sales that hopefully are, valid and good examples of other properties. Working along with Rob and his staff, and then everybody with Vision will have IDs, wearing a vest. If you happen to have a sale and they're coming by your property, they're also sending out letters. So, and if there's any doubt, you can always call the town hall or the police station before you let anybody in. Sales and income analysis. So we're looking at the sales, like Rob said, for the 2 years, determining land prices, hopefully some vacant land sales. Building values and depreciation. So we're using building manuals to show what the value is for the products to build a house. Different neighborhoods, probably similar to last time, but they could, it could be a new subdivision. We pulled into a neighborhood to the left or right of it. And then with the income would be setting the market rents and the cap rates, and then developing computer models based on all the information we receive. Analysis of market information. So we get the three approaches. You have sales, you have income, and you have cost. The income doesn't apply to residential, it's just commercial, but we use the other two for commercial if appropriate. Setting the market value, and that's the assessment date. Reviewing all the values and data in the field. So that was what I was talking about, the field review that we go by and we look at all the residential and commercial properties in town. And we're checking for the accuracy and consistency while we're doing that out in the field. And then We'll send out the new value, a letter to everybody in the town with their new value. And at that point, if they feel the value is incorrect, they can make an appointment themselves 24 hours a day, or they can call an 800 number and make an appointment. And then you have the choice of an in-person appointment or a phone appointment. So we're running about 50-50. So since COVID, we started the phone, and a lot of people seem to enjoy that. So we'll call you and we'll talk about it, and we can explain how it was done, and you can tell us why it might not be correct. And then once we have the hearing, all the hearings are done, we'll send out letters to everybody that had a hearing with whether the value stayed the same or the value went down. And then at that point, if you're still not satisfied, you'd have to go through Rob in the assessor's office for an abatement after that. And then the project finalization, all the values are finally set after the hearings, and we make any small adjustments. We run all types of reports, and Dave does some of that, checking those. Final, deliver it to the community, and then the appraisal report. It's a large report just showing how everything was arrived at, and that's delivered to the town also as the final thing.
Well, good evening. My name is David Cornell, so thank you everybody for showing up tonight. And so just going to go a little bit about our role in the process. And so the town has approximately about 3,700 properties, and each property may have anywhere between 50 to 100 data elements assigned to each property. And so there's a lot of data. And so our role tries to take some of the data that's in the system, and it tries to organize that data that's very meaningful. So, for example, this is an example where this would show, let's say, neighborhoods. And so we can tie that up with some maps. So just something as simple as ensuring that each property is assigned to its own neighborhood, because the neighborhood will also drive some land values. So that's an example. So we use a tool called Power BI, and Power BI is a Microsoft analytical tool. And so what that does is it takes the data out of the databases, and we put it into a very meaningful tool called Power BI. These are just some high-level values for the last several years. So this isn't the final values. This is just showing from raw sales. And so from here, you could see the different property types. Now, some of these you'll see wild gyrations. It just may be for some property types, there's not a ton of sales for a particular year. But these are the sales that have occurred. So you can see going back from 2020. So let's say the top row is condos, and then you can see it just is, this is the median sale price. And so once again, for the median sale price, if there's, let's say there's 100 sales within a particular year, the median would just be that middle spot for the number of sales. Other property types, you'll see, let's say the multifamily, 5+ units. In that case, a lot of years there wasn't any sales. For single family, as you probably, for those who paid attention to real estate, single families are really, a lot of the residential properties have gone up significantly over the last number of years. Once again, the values aren't set. Vision's still in the process of analyzing all the data. So this just takes some raw sales and just shows some median values from those raw sales. What the next slide does is that we have different property types, and it just kind of just puts into perspective what's happened to some of the values. And so the next slide just takes the single family line, and then it just shows the year-over-year increases per year. So let's say for the first one is 2020, so it looks at what's the median sale price in 2020 compared to 2021, and obviously you see a significant increase there. That just shows year-over-year median value increases for single-family properties. And as Rob was saying, each property type will experience a different type of increase. And so values go up or down at different rates, even within the same property type. So let's say single-family properties. Not all single-family properties would change at the same rate. So this just kind of demonstrates, from a very high level, what's happening with certain prices. This also gives another example of an analytical dashboards that we've created. Is we can create these dashboards, but then the dashboards themselves can be sliced off of different property characteristics. So the size or the condition or the grade. So we can slice that also. Also, I know it's probably tough to see, but the colors of the bubbles, we can set those colors of the bubbles for whatever categories that we want. In this case, it just shows what's the ratio of the sale price to the current assessed values. That's the way that this is set for these different colors. And what that really helps is when we're trying to set these values, it could be used as a valuable tool in that process. And then also once the values are set, or at least preliminary set, these can be used as a good review tool. For most revaluation processes, it's a little bit like a flow chart in the fact that you set preliminary values, and then you say, hey, it's be very rare that everything's perfect right off. And so in that process, you set the preliminary values, and then there may be some tweaks. And so these are some important tools that could be used in that tweaking process. This slide really is just to show also how those dashboards could be used more on for each property on the category levels. And so I use the example of one of the reports is properties that are classified as ranch properties. And then ranch properties, then we look at other characteristics that would be common with ranch properties. So let's say the story height. So obviously you wouldn't have a 3-story ranch property. And so a bunch of different analytical tools that will be used to try to ensure that the data is as clean as we can get it. And I think with that, we'll probably open it up to questions for any three of us. Thank you.
Thank you, David, Steve, and Rob. Any questions? I will take this as an opportunity to plug that this meeting has been recorded. We're going to make sure we share this with the public, be available on the town's website and through our social media channels. And we also have a designated project page for this on our town website, so yarmouth.ame.us/revaluation. There's sort of the first public presentation that this group gave to the town council in addition to some FAQs. So if throughout this process you don't get we will add questions onto that FAQ if we don't already currently cover them. And by all means, if you have questions, folks who are watching this at a later time, if you have questions, don't ever hesitate to send them along and we'll do our best to answer them. So what I'm going to do is we've got a mic that'll pass around that's mostly it'll be amplified for this room, but it's also to capture within the video. So I'll make my way around if you have questions. Great. Thanks. Test. John, is this ready to go? Test. There it goes.
I don't know who it goes to, but does a single family property include the land, like how much land the house sits on, or is it just the building?
So yeah, that would include both the land and building.
And is that like a different price or something when you value it?
Yeah. So the state of Maine requires us to, it's called decomposing the assessment. So we have to decompose it into land value and building value by statute. So we will, for every single property in town, we provide a land valuation and a building valuation, which isn't always, there's certain classes of property where it's a little less feasible than others, but we have to value them both and we will value them both. Yep.
Okay. So is market value determined by what somebody had paid for the house? So like years ago, they had that housing boom or sell off and everybody was selling their properties way more than maybe what they were worth or what somebody was paying for it. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. So market value is we're required to assess the property as for what it would sell on April 1 of 2025. So on the one hand, we're not imagining that, or like let's say a property in question sold back in 2022. We're not looking at the 2022 price necessarily, although that can be a useful clue in determining valuations if it was a more recent sale. We're only looking at the 2 years back. But essentially, we're taking sales that have happened within that 2 year period and generalizing from them. So we're creating a model based on it. And of course, property values did increase quite a bit since the beginning of the pandemic to now. For the most part, and our analysis has certainly supported that, is that they have certainly slowed in terms of the increase, but while there may be a little bit of softening here and there, for the most part, they haven't necessarily gone down, or at least not gone down much from the peak. So, and maybe Vision will, I don't know if Steve has specific information on that at the moment, but I'd say that's a general trend in pretty much all the communities that Cumberland County Regional Assessing is operating in. I'd certainly say that's true in Yarmouth.
I think just to build on her question about the sales, there's certainly rogue sales, right? Where something sold for $300,000 over whatever they were asking. Are you flagging those or taking those out, or are you just looking at the sale price and not even considering sort of what the real value might have been?
So what we do is, so my relationship, or our office's relationship with Vision, is that we will identify the sales that are so-called arm's length transactions, then we provide them to Vision for the purposes of analysis. We do pretty extensive research into property sales, and especially where there's let's say a outsized or outlier ratio of sale price to assessed value. We do pay attention, at the very least, to identify why. And so there could be a number of reasons why why something like that happens. I mean, there could be extenuating circumstances that have to do with, let's say the sale includes personal property, like you'll see boats and things like that are included in sales if you do a little digging. There's sales between related parties for one reason or another. There's a number of different ways why that could happen. They recently remodeled the house or something like that. Again, so we're generalizing from multiple property sales, generally for a particular area. You'll have more than one property sale in a neighborhood, hopefully, ideally at least. But that's exactly it. We're creating a model, which is not necessarily always perfect, but it's the best approximation we can to develop a value. So in a very circuitous way, the answer is if it's appropriate, but we also take it into context with other property sales. So if there are other sales that are, let's say, in this context more reasonable, that's certainly taken into effect at the very least, because these schedules are based on trying to arrive at values that are, again, supported by sales, not just, in this case, one sale. And I mean, I don't know if you have anything else on that.
No, well, that pretty much, yeah. So what we've noticed, Vision does approximately 350 to 400 cities and towns in New England, and as the volume of sales has definitely gone down, but we haven't really noticed yet any values going down. So, where closer to the pandemic, there'd be, 10 or 20 offers for a house. Now there's, 5 to 7, but it only takes one. So that's what we're seeing so far in all of New England, that the values really haven't decreased, but the amount of sales has decreased. So
One thing on the chart that David put up there, your there was only one sale in the 5+ units. Will you look outside of the town? Because to just base everything on one sale doesn't seem like enough data. The 1.5 million for, it was the multi-unit.
I mean, I don't want to speak for Vision, but typically for unique properties, we're looking for comparables. If there's no local comparables, that would be expanded a bit.
Yeah. So with apartments lately over the last couple of years, out of all the commercial properties, apartments have increased the most out of all of those. Just because maybe possibly people can't afford a house, so they're going to an apartment that they're renting, and the rents continue to go up. So that's what I was talking about with the income and expense statements. So we sent out income and expense statements to all the apartments in town, and we asked them what they're renting for, and tell us, studio 1, 2, 3, et cetera. And then it's based on an income approach, because what you're willing to pay for that apartment is based on what they're actually getting for rent. So if there's no sales, if there's a bunch of sales, it kind of comes down with commercial properties to the income approach. So let me just say that the apartments will be going up.
If I believe that my sketch and my square footage with you is inaccurate, what's the best way to communicate that? I know we did a renovation on a building, so we had a floor plan, and it sort of never came over from us doing the renovation to you, even though it actually went down. So I don't know. Is there a way to communicate that?
Yep. So because this is a statistical reval, Vision isn't, with a couple of exceptions, they're not inspecting most properties. So in a case like that, you would just communicate that to my office at Cumberland County. We'll have an appraiser come out and take a look at whatever you would like us to.
And how's it going in other towns with just kind of the amount of people who are coming, and is there a percentage and asking you to change the value after you're done?
Once we send out the new value to all the property owners, commercial and residential, typically we've been looking at 5%, but lately it's been down as low as 3%. So whatever the total count is for the town, we're to get approximately 3% would come in for a hearing with Vision. And then there could be some mistakes in there, which we'll clean up, and there might not be some mistakes in there. Then if they're not satisfied, they'd move on to the assessor's abatement would be the next thing. But a rule of thumb would be 5% would come in. I think people are more aware that their house is worth a lot more because there's so much on the news, the newspapers, their neighbor sold the house for some crazy number and you thought they'd never get it. So there seems like there's less people coming in and there's more people realizing that the number's closer to what it should be.
Okay, thank you. That's a lot lower than I would have thought.
I have a quick question for Rob.
Sure.
Would you mind going back to the question of like why now? Can you talk a little bit more about certified ratio and sort of the state's process to develop sort of equitable taxation?
Sure. So the state works with our office to develop a sales ratio study on an annual basis. They're using sales, depending on the size of the community, from anywhere from a year to 2 years old to generate that analysis. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to determine what the ratio of assessed value to sale prices is for qualified or arm's length sales. So generally speaking, if your assessment system is at market value, which is the goal of this revaluation, your assessment ratio is at 100%. So that means that properties are essentially assessed for what they're selling for. As that relationship begins to skew, generally speaking, at least in the last 10 years, it's downwards of the assessed value divided by your what the sale price is. As that ratio begins to shrink, essentially your assessments are coming in lower than what properties are selling for. And the state does have certain statutory and rulemaking requirements on where that is supposed to sit. Generally speaking, the ratio has to be between, it has to be above 70% in order for the municipality to essentially be in compliance. The state does have some enforcement actions if it falls out of that. Last year, so for tax year 2024, the certified ratio was 63%. And we just got the new sale ratio study information back for 2025. And so without the reval, we'd be at 53% of market value. So essentially properties are they're being assessed at about half of what market value is. And so one of the goals of the reval is, of course, to make the burden of taxation a bit fairer according to the state definition, but also to bring property values up to 100% of market value. And so we're a bit off the mark just because that's how the market has changed over the last 10 years. Yarmouth is certainly not unique in that respect. Pretty much every one of our communities that we serve has had a reval in the last 5 years because of the change in the market.
And I just had one more question, and we'll come back over for David. So toolbox that you were sharing, is that going to be publicly available, or is that just for your internal review?
Right
The
now,
dashboard.
Right now, that'll be for internal review. Some clients at the end of the project will request a report to push out to the public.
Right. So it's essentially a tool to generate reports. And so as we generate reports for the purposes of analysis, they'll be available for public request. So yeah.
Okay. I get a little confused with this evaluation thing. I've gone on Vision thing because I look at properties or whatever when I see them for sale. So that what's listed there, like I look at my house, that's what I'm paying property tax on, what is in that database for Vision Quest or whatever. Is that correct?
Yeah. So those are the data points that are used to generate the value that your property taxes are based on.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So when you go do your study to evaluate all our properties, you're actually looking at what properties are selling for. I guess that's what confuses me, because in the system it has one number, but yet if somebody pays 3 times that amount, all of a sudden now, because of that, you guys are saying, oh, that property's worth more, we're going to now tax it more. I guess I can't, this is where I don't understand
Sure.
this process.
So yes, if you look at an individual property, if let's say that particular neighborhood or that particular property sells and that's a qualified sale, it may be a useful data point, and that'll be used to change the valuations for the properties around that. Across the board, property values are going to go up, but that doesn't necessarily mean taxes are going to go up, at least not in proportion to that increase in valuation. Again, so revaluations are revenue neutral. The goal isn't for the municipality to collect more money. It's one good way to think about it, or a common metaphor for it, is that it's a seesaw. So like if the town's overall tax valuation goes up because everyone's property value has increased since 2016, but the town is still raising the same amount of money, the tax rate has to go down in a proportional amount. So yeah, your valuation will go up, but the tax rate, assuming equal spending, will decrease proportionally. So, on an individual basis, at this point, we can't say whether or not an individual's taxes are going to go up or to what degree they're going to go up. But just because your property value, let's say, doubles, it doesn't mean your tax burden is going to double. If everyone's property value doubles, then the town still is only going to collect what's been budgeted and approved.
So to talk about sort of current day analysis, we're in the sort of the final steps of drafting the FY26 budget, which will be in front of the town for the town meeting in June. Based on our sort of very conservative analysis when it comes to actual property tax base, we're estimating that the mill rate would, even with the projected increase in expenditures through the town, the school, and the county, is expected to, the mill rate is expected to drop by about $10 per thousand. So currently the mill rate is at $26 or just over $26. With the adjustment in values, and it may be even more than that, we're taking a conservative approach here, it's going to be closer to $15 or $16 per thousand. So again, to Rob's point, just because values increase doesn't necessarily mean your tax bill will increase. It's going to be sort of subjective based on the property.
Yep. Great.
Any other questions? Yeah.
We should. It's hard to say that it's not going to, our taxes aren't going to increase because we're looking at like a 9% increase in the budget or 8% or no.
Yep. So we right now blended right now because there may be some changes. I'm looking at Randy because he makes those decisions. Right now we're looking at a blended tax increase of about 6.6% across the board. So there are expenditure increases, but there's also revenue increases. And again, this is that all of this gets baked into that projected mill rate, which is the amount of money that we need to raise per property. And again, we're estimating at about 75% increase in total valuation across the board, which to some of these statistics that we're seeing now is probably very conservative. So we might see even more than that, which means, again, that pie is much bigger, right? And it's proportioned more equitably across the board. So again, that may change in the next couple of weeks, depending on some minor tweaks. But again, expenses, again, it's not a perfect match because there are increases to expenses, but the overall value base will be significantly more than it is now. Any other questions? Well, thank you, folks, for being here. Rob, Steve, David, for everything. Like I said, all of this material will be available on the town's website. And certainly if there are questions between now and sort of the end of this revaluation or statistical revaluation process, don't ever hesitate to reach out. And we can certainly connect you with these fine folks up here if there are questions that we can't handle, but we'll do our best at Town Hall. So thanks again, and thank you for participating. And we'll see you at the next conversation.
Great.
Thank
Thanks.
you.